So thanks for joining us this morning. Today we're going to run through our P6-QA tool. This tool works right inside of P6 and it lets you know any problems, deficiencies in your schedule. I'm Nicole Jardin, joining you today here from Calgary, sunny Calgary today. I'm the founder and CEO of Emerald. And as I mentioned, doing the heavy lifting will be Marilyn Backstrom. She's one of our implementation consultants, and she's joining today from Edmonton. So let me touch on why we created P6-QA. So one of our services was to do schedule critiques. We'd be called in by a client to review the schedule, and it was often very frustrating experience because we would be called in at the last minute because there's a stage gate they had to go through. And we were given very little time, and we had to try and wrap our arms around what was in the schedule and give feedback. So we found it a very frustrating part of our work as consultants on P6 and risk consultants, etc. So we thought there's got to be a better way. There's got to be a better way to do this. So what we started to do was we had a spreadsheet that we put all this data in. We realized, why don't we just do it right inside P6? So why don't we just have a way to create standards, let the standards speak for themselves within a company, right? So people could collaborate with them and be able to actually get the quality going on a regular basis, not just because some stage gate was required. So when you're working with P6, of course, there's three aspects of project management that you're dealing with: the timing, so the schedule, and everyone uses that, the resourcing. So a study Oracle did, it's quite old now, but I would imagine the percentages are similar. 60 to 70% of people use resources. So lots of people still do resourcing in P6, and of course it's a very strong part of the software. And then 30 to 40% used costs. So the idea is we're trying to evaluate the quality of everything that you can use inside the system. And a lot of the standards out there in the market relate to timing primarily, not always resourcing and costing. So we do all those. Plus, what we added was the ability to do your own analysis of things that were important to you as an organization, such as mandatory codes, things of that nature. So what we were trying to really do is introduce a more reliable, consistent way of doing scheduling, get rid of the bottlenecks that occur with your lead scheduler maybe always being too busy or having to get a side consultant to come and do the analysis. So you wouldn't necessarily have to always have an expensive third party like us come and look at your scheduling. You're doing much more of the evaluation yourself. And as I mentioned, you can include your own business process requirements because they do vary. They definitely vary from client to client, from project to project. So we wanted to really get into a mode where our clients were able to do a lot of the heavy lifting, a lot of the analysis themselves. And that includes the most junior person on your team, a new person, to the more senior, to have a very consistent methodology to support that ongoing learning and that ongoing improvement. So that's really why we built this tool. It was for that purpose. So I'm going to ask a few questions here just to see the people participating today. Do you receive schedules from contractors? And have you mandated adherence to specific business practices? So this is a big use case for us. We work a lot with owners. We work a lot with contractors too. So this is not meant just for an owner versus a contractor. So I'll show the results for those who decided to answer. When you're trying to critique a schedule, you want to be as fair as possible. You want to have a consistent methodology. So having P6-QA brings that to the table. And Mary Lynn will show you how easy it is to produce different reports that allow you to explain where the gaps might be. Okay, so this is a big thing. So let's ask another quick question. How do you currently check your schedules? How do you do it? What do you have? A very expensive third-party tool, which there are some tools on the market, very expensive and which means they're very limited. Or do you run a bunch of reports and do a bunch of counting and things like that? Okay, so if you want to answer that, these are kind of handy, because we do post all these polls on our website. We update them once a year, and they are on our website. So if you want to see kind of how your company compares to others, you can go find those on our different software pages. So if you answer those, they'll come through. Okay. And then one last quick question. How often do you check schedules? So this is a key driver here. Lots of people, as I mentioned, might check the schedule because we have a stage gate coming up, so we better do it right away. Okay. Now, that's one approach, and we've seen that pretty common. I'm working on a project right now where the user said, well, we gave you the plan. Why do we need to update it? Right? So this is a common misconception. The plans and quality analysis are only needed at the beginning when you have a gate that you have to try and hit. That's not a good practice. You're missing the whole point of putting all that work into it, is to keep it updated and keep critiquing it. As things change, you have to keep critiquing and analyzing the quality. So that's really the benefit of P6-QA. You should be able to make sure that your ongoing analysis is continuing. Is my audio messing up? It feels like it is from my side. Shannon?
Yeah, just I can still hear you. It's just a little
garbled.
Or, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure why.
It's off and on. Yeah.
Okay. 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 Well, how it works. It's quite simple the way that it works. We set up different quality metrics we're going to go after: logic, leads, durations, etc. You can also look at, of course, things like constraints, hard and soft constraints, resourcing, costing, and updating. So we run the gamut of things that you can check. Now, you can also add your own business process requirements, like activity naming conventions, whether you're going to have resources, expenses, cost accounts, etc. So there's a lot of business process items you can insert as well. And then the different standards will be, or metrics will be run against those. Now, with all those different aspects that we're able to put inside the tool, we cover many different industry standards out there on the marketplace. Okay, so here's a few of them. So if you've got to adhere to some of those, reach out and we can discuss how to best use this. Okay, I think I'll turn it over to Mary Lynn and let her show you how the software works. And if you have questions as she runs through it, please go ahead and put them in the question room and I will answer them as she goes. Okay, I'm going to give it over to Mary Lynn.
Okay, thanks. I'll just get my screen share going and we'll be
okay
here.
Perfect.
Okay, let's take a look at exactly how P6-QA works. You may be wondering, well, what advantage is this going to be? Nicole's given you high level what you can of course grab out of it, but what does this actually look like? How tough is this to use? It's extremely easy to use, and when you do your checks, what you're seeing on the screen right now is a Power BI report, and we'll look at more of them a little bit later, but you can track how your schedule, your activities are doing. Now, in this case, this report was built based on Defense Contract Management Agency checks, so the DCMA checks. So you've got information on all the checks that have been run. So do I have an issue, or is my schedule in good shape? Summaries like this make it very easy to see. For example, this particular file, I've got a lot of logic missing. So you can see right away, first check, logic missing, I've got a lot of them, 55. I've got 11 of them where logic is missing, but we'll explain the red, green, and yellow a little bit more as we go on. But you've got failed, you've got warning, and you've got passing. So you can see right here, 55 failed. That's not going to give you good results if you're missing that much logic. And of course, you can go down the whole list. So we'll come back to these reports, but just to let you know, you don't have to go through P6 and struggle with rolling things up yourself. You can create reports that your snapshots of your schedules will show the information to you. So what I'm going to do now is just go to P6. When we're looking at P6-QA, you can create a number of different layouts to show you different pieces of information and different pieces of information at different levels. So right now, of course, we're looking at the project level. These are all the projects that I'm running P6-QA on. I've got a set of columns here. These are all schedule quality. So you'll notice that in the bottom, in the notebook tab here, I've got visible. There's a number of different reports sitting in here. So I've got reports for schedule quality. I've got reports for business process validation, DCMA, and on down the line. So depending,
Hey, Marilyn.
Yes?
Sorry to interrupt. Do you think that you could see if you could try and bump your resolution? One person is saying they can't see the screen. So do you know how to do that, to bump your resolution on your monitor?
Not offhand. I haven't done that for a long time.
Okay. If you go out and you go to the monitor itself, like the desktop.
Okay.
Yeah. Right click.
Okay.
Display.
Okay. Display settings.
Yeah. Let's just see if we can bump it. Oh, you got a lot of monitors.
Yeah, I do.
We can bump it for the one that P6 is on. It's
yeah,
difficult.
That's number one.
Okay.
That's number one.
If you scroll down, I think we can find it. It's a percentage. Yeah. If you bump the 250 to 300 in the scaling.
Oh, I see. Okay. Oh.
I think if you just go back and do the picker. Yeah.
I've had these set up for so long, I've never actually.
Yeah. No, exactly. It's just sometimes in the presentation, it's too small.
Okay. 300.
Yeah. Let's see if that does anything. And it's just in P6. It's P6 that's the difficult one because it's not doesn't scale great.
Okay, so if I close this, I can go back to the other screen and it will automatically adjust?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
It might be just a bit bigger, and I'm not sure. Maybe that didn't help.
Do I need to F5 it to get it to?
No, it should do it automatically.
Okay.
Okay, sorry, Yemi. We're going to just keep going, but hopefully the recording, you can zoom in. I think you can zoom possibly too while you're watching. But
yeah,
Shannon,
on
do you know?
The bottom right, if you kind of hover on the picture, there is a button that says full screen.
Okay, thank you.
That might also give him a little more.
Okay, sorry, Marilyn.
No worries. Are we good to go ahead, or should I try putting it
Yeah.
bigger?
No, I think just keep going. We'll
Okay.
Hopefully they can zoom, and or the recording will be able to be zoomed.
Okay, I've got a sample file here just so that we can walk through some of the functionality that you'll see. But what I wanted everybody to be aware of, we have a schedule quality layout here. So of course, as you can see in the notebooks, there is a large number of checks that P6-QA can do for you. So you're not likely going to want everything in one layout. Depending on what you're focusing on, of course, you want to create the layout that's going to let you focus on different pieces. And then if you need to open another one, that's fine as well. Now, if I'm looking at schedule quality, the copy of the file that I've got here, if I go across here, I can see schedule quality, high duration. I've got a big stop sign. So I've got a problem there. I've got the high duration and I've got the number of fails. So you can see not only do I have a problem, but what is the magnitude of the problem. I've got high float, of course, failed as well. And it's telling me numbers. Now, some of these columns for soft constraints, I don't have the numbers sitting behind in the layout, but you can get the idea of what you can set up. So if I've just done updates in my schedule, or I've just created a new section in the schedule, depending if you're in development or if you're in updating or where you're at with your schedule, you can run P6-QA and you can come in here and you can see really quickly, where have I got problems? And if I wanted to go to all of the other checks, same thing. You can create a layout with the checks you need to focus on first, because depending on the industry and the type of schedule, your focus points may not be the same as another company right off the hop. So when you're looking at P6-QA, how does it run? Well, you can see in the QA frequency column here, you can see that you can set it to run weekly. You could set it to run monthly, daily, that kind of thing. This one is set manually so that we can run it ourselves after we make some changes to the file. And it is extremely easy to run, as you'll see. If you've got a layout similar to this, all you have to do is take out the QA last run date, and P6-QA is polling these particular files. When it says QA yes, no, it's yes, so it's going to poll that file. So you don't have to worry about that. All you have to do is take out the last date and it will automatically say, oh, okay, I have to run this again. But you can set it to run automatically as well. Now, if I want to have a look at the reports, we've got a lot of different ways that you can look at the information. For example, if I've just put new information into the schedule, I've rerun P6-QA, I can tell at the project level if I have issues. Now I can also come down to the reports in the bottom. And for example, if I click on schedule quality validations, you'll see there is information in the window. Now, just to have a quick look at what's in here, if I click modify, now they come up fairly small, so I'm going to make this bigger so we can hopefully see it a little better. Now, if I want to have a look at the specific checks, and you can click on any one of them in the notebook tab, and you're going to get a report. Now, this is part of what Nicole was referring to. You can check the information, and you've got a text summary here. So I've got a summary at the top. It's telling me the checks. So for example, the second one here, open ends. It gives me the target. So you set the targets in the tool, because not every industry is going to look for exactly the same targets necessarily. So those are customizable. You set the target your files need. So the target is set. It's going to go through and check, and it's going to give you the results and the counts as well. So if I go down a little bit farther, it's broken down. I've got dangling activities. In other words, activities that don't have a successor except start to start, that kind of scenario. Now I've got logic, open ends for predecessors, open ends for successors. Again, I've got targets, I've got percentages, and I've got the numbers. Now, that's the summary roll-up. If I want to see details, I just scroll down here, and here's the individual checks. Here's the open ends. Here's the remaining open ends. Now, if I go down just a little bit farther, The one I'm going to look at right in the file is predecessor successors. So let's have a look at those. So if I go down, I can see logic, open ends for predecessors. What open ends have I got? Well, it's found 5 of them, and it gives you the 5 activities. Now, just be aware that if you do a check on a file, and I've had this happen, where there are, for example, 220 fails, it's going to show you the first set number. I believe it's 20. And then it's going to indicate that there is more, because you don't want your report to get huge, huge, huge. But the thing is, you've got the numbers here, and when you go into the file, as we're going to do in a second, you can easily find all of them, whether there's 100, 200, 220, and it sounds bizarre, but yes, I had a file that had 220 open ends in it. So if we go down, we've got the successor open ends. So you can go down through and you'll see detailed information for every check that we've got sitting up in the summary here. So I'll just close that one for now, and we'll have a look at these again. And what I want to do is let's have a look at the activity level. So at the project level, I can see whether I've got pass, fails. I can put numbers in the columns if that makes things easier for looking at your checks. I've got the reports that give me the summary at the top, details at the bottom. Now, if I go into the file itself, again, you can set up a number of layouts so that the pieces of information you want to focus on first, of course, are right there. So this particular layout is schedule quality, the logic pieces. So you can see on the screen right away, I've got in the first column, I've got overall validation. I've got a lot of fails. There's a lot of activities in here that need some fixing done before my schedule is going to be where it should be. Now let's have a look at one of them. First of all, let's have a look at logic missing. So if I look at logic missing, I've got milestones here, first of all. Yes, of course, some of them have logic missing. I've got activities, though, that also have logic missing. So let's look at the activities first. I've got open-ended predecessors. In other words, they're missing predecessors. If I want to verify what I'm looking at here, I'm not going to go through all of them, but just to show you, if I click on one of the ones that has the red stop sign, in other words, it is missing a predecessor. Now, if I just bring up the activity details for a second, and I look at relationships, and just let me, here's one is missing a successor, and I know what happened here, just bear with me, because I did rerun this morning, and I've had this happen before. It's just an F5 thing on my machine. So anyways, we have got some missing logic. So here's missing predecessor. Let's put the predecessor back in, and then we'll run this and you'll see the changes to these icons. So I've got predecessor missing. So the predecessor to this particular one is actually one of the milestones. So I'm just simply going to go in and put that information in. So now it's got a predecessor. Now, if I look at this particular one, it's got logic in it. If I go to the next one, here's one missing successor. So if I go in and I look at a missing successor, this one actually needs to go to E1MIN010. So I will give it, sorry. Yeah, it does. That is the successor. Just bear with me a second. Assign E1020. We'll give it a successor here. Now, if we go and look at the predecessor on the last one, I'll put the predecessor in. So we'll clean up a few of these just so you can see when we run this. So whether it's you putting the information in, or whether you're working with your team and somebody else is putting the information in, you can always go in and look and see what is actually going on. Because what can happen, of course, you can get a lot of different pieces of information going in, and then you don't want to go through piece by piece by piece and try and figure all this out. So I've fixed a few of these. First of all, let's go to the project level and let's run P6-QA. So if I go to my file that's open, I did mention to you that running QA is very easy. So we've got it set on manual. Like I mentioned, you can have it automatically run at specific intervals, like weekly, monthly. I've got it set on manual. So what I want to do is just take this date for last run date out. And once I do that, I'm simply refreshing. Now, this takes a minute or so to run. It's not a really long time. I've run P6-QA on files that have a few thousand activities, and it really isn't. You're not running it, and I've never found anyways, you're running it and you're going to get a cup of coffee and still waiting for it and things. It is fairly quick to go through. The very first time you run it, you might find that takes a little longer, but after that, it's usually fairly quick to update. Now, when it goes through and completes the update, you can see in the bottom here in the notebooks, it's defaulting to business process validation. We're going to see this built on date on the notebook change because it's going to give us the new one. So I'm just going to refresh again. There we go. It has refreshed it. So I've got a date in the column, but excuse me, I've also got a new build date in the reports. So each time you run it, it's refreshing the information on the top and the information in the bottom. So if I look at my activities and I click on refresh to make sure we're looking at the latest and greatest of the information. Now you'll see I've got some more greens here that I did not have before. So successors, none of these are missing successors. I've got the predecessors. I fixed a couple of them that were in there. So I've got the icons for no problem in the predecessors now. So you can go through and you can fix those. Now, you'll notice it when we look at the numbers in the reports. Okay, I've got open-ended successors. I cleaned up the activities. You're still going to see open-ended successors in that report just simply because I've got some yellow icons. Now, we'll go in a few minutes and we'll have a look at you set up if you want a differentiation between you want just not pass fail as indicators. You can set up the percentages where a certain percentage is a complete fail. Between certain parameters, it is a warning. And then below a certain parameter is the green, the pass. So you control that as well. But even if it is a warning, it's still going to get counted that, okay, there's still something that you want to look at. It's not necessarily a showstopper, but it's something that you are going to want to have a look at. And you can see I'm selected on one of the milestones and the successor box is empty. So we didn't do anything with that particular one. So on that note, I'm just going to go to the project tab for a second and click on this file that we've got open. I'm going to schedule quality validation because that's the one we're looking at. It just doesn't happen to be the first one in the list. If I click modify, we can look at the new report. So this is the report after we've gone in and we've actually adjusted logic in here. So when I go in to look at successors, you'll see the 3 milestones that we looked at are still being counted. But we fixed the activities that had open ends on the successors. So it's only telling us that we've got 3 now, just as an example. So it's going through, doing the checks and rewriting the report. And again, if we want to look at open ends on our successors, again, same thing, just go down the list. Here's my successors, and here's my 3 activities that are missing successors. So it's going to adjust all that information. It's rewriting the reports for you. So that makes it extremely easy to see exactly what you need to focus on to fix. So depending on what you've set as your parameters, you may end up with yellow icons, in other words, warnings, but it's still something you want to have a look at. Now, if you find that, just a note, that if you find that looking at a large layout like this maybe doesn't work for you, and you want to build a layout that is predecessors and lags only and take the rest off, put it in a different layout, definitely you can do that. You can use the layouts that you see as we go through this, but you can create your own. So whatever's going to work the best for you. But personally, I find using this tool when you're putting together a schedule, and I've worked a lot of turnarounds. I absolutely love it running in the background on turnarounds because you've got a lot of information coming from subcontractors. Of course, that's not the only circumstances where that would happen, but you've got a lot of information coming from subcontractors, and it's often coming from somebody in the subcontractor's team who might not have as much background in updating schedules as perhaps initially you might think, that kind of thing. They're trying their best to put the updates in, but maybe there's things that need to be done that they just are not aware of. So you're going to see it right away, and you can just pick up the phone and have that conversation. Say, hey, you're missing this or you're missing that, and make it easier for everybody. Okay, now we have had a quick look at logic. Now, what I'd like to look at next is, let's go in and have a look at a few of the other pieces that you can track. Now, we obviously don't have time to go through all of them, but I want to show you some of the ones that can be extremely helpful. Not that they're necessarily more helpful than others, just more common. So what I want to do now is I'm just going to go into another layout here in the actual file. And what I want to have a look at now, let's have a look at the duration and float. So you can use these layouts, or you can create your own if you have others that work better for you. So if I look at duration and float here, I've got high duration, and I've got float indicators. Now I also have other columns, remaining duration. The variances are sitting in here, so that's other information. It's all there for you to use as you find useful. So any of these pieces of information, it is something that is going to be of advantage at some point. So you want to just be aware that it is actually there. Now, what I want you to be aware of here is you've got some activities here that say they've got high float. Well, you've got high float. Is that by design, or is that because there's logic missing? That kind of a scenario. So you'll start to see where some of these things start to, I guess you would call, connect to each other. So if we go into project controls, for example, you can see high duration. Well, we need to be aware of too that there is the level of efforts. Well, the level of efforts quite often are going to be by design long activities. So if we go in here, and I'll just show you in the activity details just so you can see what this particular one is, level of effort. Now, this other one here, project schedule, level of effort. So if we go in and we look at this, and you might have 10 or 15 of them. If I look at them and I'm checking the schedule and I'm thinking, yeah, okay, that one makes sense, I'm not worried about it, but you don't want to go through the next day and think, okay, here's some red icons. I got to go check these as well. And if there's a big list, remembering which ones you've already checked and you weren't worried about, in your head, it might work well. In mine, I probably would forget some of them. So if we look at the level of effort and we decide, you know what, I'm not worried about this, you can go in and put a blue star in here. Now, if I put a blue star in here, then in the high duration, this activity will no longer be tagged because it looks at the blue star and says, yes, the user knows what's going on here, so I don't need to flag it. And that way, anything that you look at here right away, okay, I've seen that, carry on. So you don't have to waste your time each time you come and check this and think, okay, I've got another problem I've got to deal with when it's one you've dealt with a while ago. So if I want to blue star that and I want to go back and I can rerun this, but just before I do, that is high duration. So what I'll do is I'm just going to go to schedule quality, and you'll see there is high duration in here as well. So of course, once we update that, you've got the reference to the high duration in your report as well. So here's your duration high right here, and it's saying we've got 8 of them. So I'm just going to close that and let's rerun this. Whoops, got to stay on the same one here. And again, I'm just going to hit F5 and we'll just let that run itself. Now, while that one's running, another element that I want to have a look at, and we will have a look at that, is we'll go and have a look at business process indicators. You might be wondering exactly what is that piece. Well, that one has a lot of very interesting checks that you can easily do with this tool that you would really have to carry out a lot of work to do them manually. And that part, I've dealt with a lot of schedules that they needed those pieces checked. So this particular one is run. Let's just have a look at schedule quality. And I'm just going to go down to the high duration, which is down a ways here. Whoops. Here's my high duration, and you'll notice remaining's changed to 6 because when I went into the file, I seem to be frozen here. Just bear with me a second. There we go. I tagged these 2. So it reduced the remaining one by 2. So your reports are tracking all the time anything that gets changed in here. So now let's go to the project tab and let's have a look at the BP criteria. So you can put a layout on the projects tab for that. I'm going to say no, I don't want to change anything. So here's BP indicators. So if I look at the layouts, I've got a layout here that will show me business process indicators. So if I look here, I can see business process indicators. Now, let's look at the actual criteria, which is what I should have gone to first. My apologies. So here's BP criteria, but this will give you a little bit more idea of what can I actually look at, create layouts of groups of elements. You can create whatever is going to fit what you need to monitor. When I go into business process criteria, this is something that I think might interest a lot of people. It does me, because I've dealt with a lot of schedules I worked a lot of years with schedules for aircraft, repair and overhaul of a large aircraft. Our activity IDs had specific breakdowns. Now, those breakdowns in those activity IDs generated monitoring reports. So if we got new activities added to our schedule with the wrong activity ID breakdown, guess what? They didn't show up on the right reports, and that never plays out well. So this is a monitor that you can track. Do you have any activities in your schedule that are not meeting that criteria? Now, I've also got duplicate activity names. This is another one of my favorite checks. There's quite a few favorites, sorry, but this one, I run into this so much. I've worked turnaround schedules where when I first looked at the schedule, when you have 200 or 300 activities that are all named erect scaffolding as an example, that's not helpful, because if that goes out to the field like that, chances are your updates are not going to come in correctly, especially if there's no other column right beside something like that that's supposed to tell the field people exactly what that pertains to. So I always encourage things like, yes, you can say erect scaffolding. What unit is that? What piece of scaffolding is that? Something that's going to give the people enough information that they can give the right updates. So that's just an example of where this duplicate activity name comes from. If you have a bunch erect scaffolding or dismantle scaffolding or things like that. I've got no mandatory codes. I've worked with a lot of schedules where mandatory codes, in other words, global codes, need to be populated in order to generate certain roll-up reports and management reports. So you want to be able to check that those codes are not left blank by accident. So this check is going to do that for you. So just to give you a few different examples. Now, if we want to go and have a look at the activity level, we want to see what this looks like. Let's go into activities, and I'll just change the layout again. So you can go in and you can check all these different pieces and get a very visual idea of what's going on. Here's business process indicators. And I'll just take this piece out of our way here. So you've got business process indicators. Now, the checks that were done, the checks activity ID format didn't adhere to the format that's set for this particular file. I've got activity type, fixed duration, and units. You can even check the activity type depending on the project that you're dealing with. So you've got a lot of different checks that are available here that can give you some very good information as to whether your project is actually adhering to the checks that you need confirmed. So if you're using roles and you don't have roles on some activities, this column right here tells you that. So that's the kind of things that it will definitely give you a bird's eye view of, so to speak. So my apologies, I'm looking at the time. I tend to talk too much. I will try and behave here. So the other thing I'd like to show you is we talked about checks before updates, checks after updates. What happens? I'll just go back to a different layout here. Let's look at updates. So if I wanted to have a look at what's going on in my particular project after updates are put in. Now, it might be me doing the updates. It might be a number of people. I've been involved in projects where we had 23, 27 people doing updates. So if you're the lead scheduler, you are going to want to do your updates, and then you are going to want to be able to see exactly what's happened, what's gone on with it. So if I go, for example, into my second progress update, I'll just take as an example because we're getting a little short on time here. So if I open that file, let's look at some of the checks that are in there. You can see really easily right after any update, whether it's a partial update or it's a complete update, whatever the case is. Now, just bear with me. I may need to go to a different file here. It looks like I might have a bit of an issue. Yeah. I looked at that one before oh, I know why. Wrong layout. Sorry. So what we want to do is we want to look at our updating. So exactly what elements are you updating? Are you auto-computing actuals? Are you not auto-computing actuals? You can set up different checks. And what we want to have a look at here is what's the result of our updating. So if we look at updating or updating problems, I'll just go to this one. They're just slightly different layouts. So here's after my updates. And let me just go into schedule and business processes. So I've got some different checks. Now, for some reason, my icons are not displaying on this one, but they usually do. I just want to try one other layout and see what's going on here, because I ran through all these this morning. They were fine. So I am really a little mystified as to what's happened here, but let's check this out. So there's updating. Just going to go up. There's one more layout here. No.
Is it under P6-QA, Marilyn?
Sorry, the layout?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is P6-QA.
Yeah. Okay.
I should have, that's reporter updating. No, I've tested these before, these updating ones, but they don't seem to be populating right now. They were populated. I'm not sure what happened there. But to give you an idea what will populate here is resources over budget. You've got resources with no actuals. It will populate the same kind of icons there for you. So what I'm going to do here,
Marilyn, go to a different project. I think if you go to the updating project is probably what might help. There should be one with updates.
Second progress. This is the one.
Yeah.
These are the two I was using. Let me go to the third one and see if that one is.
You could also go to the one in the other band under Bob Beagle, second progress. It might have some stuff.
Okay. These are the ones I checked before, so sorry, that's where I went. I didn't realize all of a sudden they disappeared. So I'll have to check and see what's going on there. But I just want you to be able to see what, there we go. Okay, this particular file is giving you the information. And this kind of thing, the other one I think probably just needs rerun. It has been, but probably just needs to be rerun. So if we look at resources over budget, I can tell right now I've got resource over budget here. Now, missed tasks, and here's an interesting one as well, actual dates greater than the data date. And this is an interesting one to have a look at as well, because this one will check things, and it will check things really closely. So you may think, okay, it's greater than the data date by how far? If I look at this activity status, my start is 23rd of June, 8 a.m. I'm not going to schedule it, but if I look at the schedule time, 23rd of June, midnight. So yeah, it's going to check. And if anything is past the data date, it's going to tell you. So those are some of the checks. There is a number of them that you can just run P6-QA on your file, and you've got the information right in front of you. So if there is things that you need to investigate and correct before you put your reports out, you've got the information there very easily. Okay, and my apologies. It looks I went down too far. That was totally my fault on the progress. I was thinking I was
Yeah,
on those files and I wasn't. So
no, that's okay.
I'll turn it back over to Nicole and to wrap it up. So that gives you a bit of a look into P6-QA. I find this tool extremely helpful, especially dealing with big projects, which I do quite often. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Mary Lynn. Okay, I didn't see any questions come through. If you do have any, go ahead and put them in the question area, and we'll tackle them. Let me go back to the presentation, and I'll do a wrap up. Okay, so Mary Lynn showed you different ideas on how you can introduce your own metrics, how you can see the different criteria, and different values that you want to monitor, also the different percentages so that you can control what you're evaluating. She showed you how you have reports right inside the tool. You can also push reports out into a more formal manner like this BI publisher. And at the beginning, she showed you a few that come from our P6 reporter tool out to Power BI. So there's lots of different ways to get this data out once you've run the P6-QA engine right inside of P6. So the benefits are numerous. First and foremost, it's very easy to use. So you don't have to be an expert scheduler to work with P6 Reporter. We've got a few clients that it's actually their engineering folks out in the field closer to the action that get those schedules and run the schedules. So they can QA them very quickly. They're not P6 users, full-time users. They do this part of P6, and if they need to engage one of the skilled P6 users within the team, they can do that. Okay, but they're able to do the critiquing themselves. So what happens is you can really start to take more advantage of your schedule, right? You can react to it quickly. You can critique it quickly. So that's important. Some of our contractor clients, they pre-critique their schedules, make sure that their client requirements have been met before they send them through. So that's another way that you can use this tool. Okay, so it's not just a client critiquing schedules that they're receiving type tool. You can also pre-critique your own work. Okay, now the key thing is it's not a big, fancy, expensive third-party software tool. You're sharing it amongst your team. That's how we sell it. It's not per user. It's per the number of metrics that you're measuring. So you can share it out to all your team. It looks like it's part of P6 to your user community is how this works. Now, I had a client who needed a schedule reviewed. This client was a developer in New York. They didn't have any schedulers on their team. In fact, I was working for the CFO, and we validated his 8,000 activity schedule that he received from a contractor in less than 2 hours. We could see very quickly that it's not a workable schedule. It had no critical path. It had tons and tons of open ends. It had a huge amount of constraints. So he would never have been able to figure all that out on his own. He didn't have the skill set. So this is the kind of thing that you can use this tool for very quickly. Okay. And I was able to give the feedback very quickly with reports that he could bring forward to the contractor. So that gives you some idea of the different kinds of things you can do with this tool and how quickly you can roll it out. We do usually have consulting when we do the rollout because we have lots of different items we critique and you don't necessarily want all of them. I'm not sure if Mary Lynn showed you, we can even do fancy ones like a calendar evaluation. Okay, one of our clients wanted to evaluate whether all the calendars were set up correctly. Okay, so we've done things of that nature as well. So you can add your own. So it's usually sold with some consulting. We help make sure the metrics are set up, working the way you expect, and then you take it on and keep working with it. If you need different reports, we can help create those as well. And that's usually just a few week type of effort at most, usually, to get it going with individual clients that want to work with the tool. Okay, let's just double check if there's any questions. Okay. My question is, to work with this quality for the schedule is built in, or I need to install any program or app to run this checks. Okay. So this is a third-party software tool that we've built. So this is Emerald software tool. Now, the reason you can't tell that, because we push it and embed it right inside of P6. So yes, it is a third-party tool, and it is, we set up the checks that you want, and then we deploy it. And then as a user, it looks like you're just working in P6, but P6-QA is doing the heavy lifting and putting all the data right inside of P6. That's the way we chose to build it on purpose. It was intentional, because we didn't want a third-party outside software tool. We wanted people to be able to critique their schedules as they worked on a day-to-day basis. Okay, so that's why you can't really tell what's going on, because it's pushing everything right into P6. Okay, so hopefully I answered that question. Okay, another one. How does it connect to P6? What kind of rights it needs? Okay. So we use the P6 API, and yes, we use a license to do that. It's not a user that you allow to log in per se. It's just set up for P6-QA to do the work. Those columns should be project codes, global or activity codes. Do they need to be set up in advance for this to work? Okay, that's a good question. So the way that we work is we create them when we deploy P6-QA. And yes, Oswaldo's question is asking, do I need to set those up? We will create them as we decide. So if you decide that you want high duration, you want that as a metric you want to measure, we know which fields go along with that, so we'll deploy that automatically. So you don't have to do it in advance. We do it as part of the rollout. And we do take advantage of basic functions inside P6. You saw those flags. Those are user-defined fields. We're using codes. So we're using out-of-the-box pieces of P6 to give you all these metrics. And we've used our calculator components to make calculations, okay, so that you can see, not only do I have high float on this activity, but I actually have 20 days over my base number, okay, so that you can graph different metrics as well. So that's how we deploy it, and it's deployed right inside P6. So hopefully I answered those questions. Okay. So we want to thank you for spending the last hour with us. Hopefully you saw something that could be interesting for your group. This is just one of many tools we have. You know, another tool that if you want special calculations, etc., you can explore on our website is P6 Calculator. Our best-selling tool is P6 Loader. That tool lets you push and pull virtually all data inside P6 using Excel. So take a look at our tools. Another one that's really growing in popularity is our P6 Reporter tool. And that snapshots data and lets you take that data and put it into Power BI, etc. Okay, so take a look, explore our website. We've got lots of tools that have been deployed all around the world. And if you want to use your P6 data better, our tools will help make that happen within your organization. So I've got Mary Lynn's information if you wanted to reach out and ask her more questions about the tool. I've also got Donna's information. She's in the Philippines. So if you're closer to her time zone, you could reach out to her as well. And definitely let us know if there's something that you'd like to explore further. I'll put up a last question here. If there is a way that you want us to reach out specifically, if you have a project or you've got someone you know that you think we should reach out to, just let us know. We'll be happy to do that. Okay, I'll stop